Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting this afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we have a full quorum. And we'll begin with our land acknowledgement, and I'm going to ask Councillor Greenfield to read it for us.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor. And now I'll ask you to just join me in a moment of silent reflection on today's business. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I just remind you that it can be declared at any time. Announcements. Any announcements? Usually our CAO begins, but he is on vacation this week. Did you have anything, Mr. Smith?
I don't think, no.
Okay, members of council. Deputy Mayor Sakivany.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good afternoon, everyone. And I know Council all received this email yesterday, and it was really, really great news to hear that our scarecrow ovation is going to be alive and well. The cry went out for help this past fall after a number of the executive members had retired. And as Meaford always does, and to quote the mayor, this community is full of heart, which is absolutely true. And enough volunteers have stepped forward to make sure that the invasion goes forward this year. And I think we all look forward to more details and some changes that may happen with that event. But the invasion, the family festival, and the parade are all going to go forward this fall. My second announcement on behalf of the Meaford Rotary Club, and thanks for the reminder from Councillor Greenfield, the Easter egg hunt will happen again this year on April the 8th at beautiful Joe Park, starting at noon sharp. And any little ones can go on to the Rotary website with the help of their parents to register for the event. This was a huge success last year. We had well over 200 children and recognized that we didn't have quite enough candy. So there will be lots more candy this year for sure. There were over 600 bags last year that disappeared, I think, in about 3 minutes flat. So, the first event was a huge success. So please do bring your little ones out April the 8th for the Rotary Easter egg hunt. Thank you.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. I just want to announce that the Bogner Community Center now has a website. It's bognercommunitycenter.ca. You want to know anything about what they're doing, want to pay for a dinner, want to do anything, you can do it online now. It's a wonderful website. Please visit it at bognercommunitycenter.ca. Thank you.
And Councillor Yorig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. This one's a little further afield, but I bring it up for a reason. Again, talking about events that are coming back, which is really nice to see. The Grey County Kite Festival is going to be in Hopeville this year. They found a partner farm down there because they need about 100 acres or 100 acres of farm to kind of put these on. It used to be a really big thing. Anyway, they were looking for anywhere in Grey County. They were looking for a home, and I think they still will be kind of doing the circulatory business. So it's really an opportunity again for Meaford ag residents to think about the future. It's a great opportunity to kind of host this big event and brings a lot of people into the community. So, but it's happening the last week in August. So mark your calendars for that. And people maybe can look, engage and see whether they would be interested in participating in something like that in the future.
And that's hopeful.
Yeah.
Almost to the bottom of Grey County, but not quite. Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to talk about a new web series that is coming out by Gray Agricultural Services. Learn how to start your own farm business in Ontario with this upcoming webinar series. You can join in on March 16th for a focus on crop-based farms, March 23rd for livestock-based farms, and March 30th for farms selling direct to consumers. Each webinar is $20 and runs from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. on Zoom. Plus, you can attend a free networking session on April 15th at the Rockland Community Center from 1 till 5 p.m. And that is presented by Eric Weber from Meaford. And for more information, you can go to grayagservices.ca.
Thank you. Any further announcements? If not, I'd just like to remind people that members of the public are encouraged to provide council with their input, comments, and questions. If a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda or ask a public question of council, they may do so either in person at the council chambers here or remotely via Zoom, either on the phone or internet. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or to ask a public question must, however, register in advance with our clerk's department, legislative services, by 10 in the morning on the day of your appearance and the council meeting. And you can do that by contacting our deputy clerk at meaford.ca or at 519-538-1060, extension 1100. An email with access information will be sent to those who register for remote participation. And a reminder that the public can view this meeting live via the Municipality of Meaford's YouTube channel at www.meaford.ca/YouTube. And we have a presentation this afternoon. I'd like to call on Imelda Fitzpatrick, the Executive Director of Meaford's Hospital Foundation. Can we make sure her mic is on there? Thank you. Good afternoon, Imelda.
Good afternoon. And do I just press this? Just the middle? Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Your Worship and Council. It's lovely to be here. This is actually my first presentation as the newly minted Executive Director of the Meaford Hospital Foundation. So I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about our lovely hospital. I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, but just to let you know what's going on and to ask for your commitment to our partnership. You've been quite generous with us in the past, and we'd like to continue that. If possible, we need our community and we need our municipality in order to have a thriving medical availability in our community for our residents. So starting off, it's a lovely picture of, where are we? Thank you. And next, please. So Meaford is a vibrant community and it has a strong healthcare system. And we know that it is slated for growth, which is amazing. But we also need to talk about the needs of the hospital and the growth of the hospital that needs to meet what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years. The Meaford Hospital has a cataract suite, ear, nose, throat surgery, X-ray, ultrasound, diabetic clinic, general surgery, and a whole host of primary care programs. We also happen to have 15 inpatient beds and 1 palliative room, and 6 family physicians that work out of our hospital. Our operating room is open 5 days a week for several different surgeries, and we have 2 dedicated anesthetists as well. We were established, the Meaford Hospital Foundation was established in 1983, and the reason that we do exist is to raise, receive, and manage money for the purpose of capital equipment purchases and building improvements at the Meaford site, but also to GBHS, which is our regional hospital in Owen Sound. Our vision is to inspire our community to be passionately invested in quality healthcare, and our mission is to provide resources to our healthcare professionals to meet the needs of the community. Our viability, the hospital's viability depends on our community and depends on the municipality, as the government provides no funds for capital purchases. I'm so sorry, I'm so nervous. I apologize.
Would you like to have the screen, like the slides advanced there?
Yes, please.
I think you're
If we
ahead
can
of
do
us.
About the municipal, if we can go forward about 5, that'd be great. 2, 3. There we go. Back again. So as I was saying, community support is the utmost of, and we depend on individuals, we depend on businesses and community groups and the municipality to make sure that we can provide our professionals with the equipment that will benefit our community. And one more slide, please. We have an amazing board, and they've been together for about a year now. And you might look and see some people up there that you know. Our chair came out in support today as well, Vince Rogers. And they are tireless volunteers who help us to make sure that our plans moving forward will benefit the hospital and that there will be stability for funding. So I'm here to say thank you so much to the municipality for being our partner since 1996. And in that time, you've given over $1 million. And the next slide, please. Basically, here's some of our quick hospital facts. The needs keep increasing. So some of our average length of stay has increased. The number of emergency department visits has increased over 5% each year, growing. And we know that through the pandemic, it's a very busy little hospital, and it is providing excellent care for the people who live here. Our challenge is that we are in some of the fastest growing communities in Ontario. And as the population grows, so do the needs of the hospital. And we want to be able to accommodate increased numbers. And contrary to popular belief, new medical equipment and other capital expenditures are not covered by provincial funding. So we're completely reliant on people. The benefit of our investment in equipment will serve everybody that lives here, as well as people who come to visit our municipality. And working together with you, we can commit to creating a much healthier community. And that would be with the right equipment, such as the new MRI for our catchment area, which is it's the second MRI that's going in up in Owen Sound. And that is one of GBHS's capital priorities, as well as a new addiction and mental health wellness and recovery center in Owen Sound as well. But locally, we have some great things going on. As you know, last year we put in a brand new cataract suite, and we're going to try and complete that so we can be state of the art. There are 2 pieces of equipment that will be available for purchase this year that we will be fundraising for as well. It's quite exciting, actually. We'll be able to offer things that private clinics are offering now, and it will lessen the large waiting list that is in Ontario for cataract surgery. In conclusion, I would again like to say thank you so much for your support over the years and for considering your thoughtful consideration towards making a pledged commitment, as ours has recently ended. We had a 5-year commitment to you. So in keeping with the funding, I'm here to ask for that, please.
Thank you, Imelda.
Thank you.
Are there questions for her? Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, your worship, and thank you, Imelda.
Thanks.
It's all very interesting. I have a question first and then a comment, if I may. 777 births I saw in this list. Now, that's all in Meaford Hospital.
No, that's
Or is that, oh, okay.
that's
I-
GBHS. They're quick
Okay,
facts.
all right. Well, I was starting to think, wow, this is a population.
It is a population growth,
Okay,
yes.
thank you for verifying that.
Yes.
I did want to thank the Meaford Hospital. About a month ago, I had an occasion to drop into Emerge.
Yes.
I'm a rather delicate old fellow. And I got there about 10 to 10. Right in, got my health card number, everything. Was taken into the Emerge waiting room, answered a few questions. Was put in another room. Shortly later, a doctor who said she was out of the area came to attend me. And anyway, I got looked after. 10 after 11, I was gone. It was an amazing experience, and I can't help but think how fortunate we are, first of all, to have the Emerge room there, but
Yes.
in general, just to have the hospital there. It is a huge asset to our municipality. We have to keep it there. We have to keep it operating, and I thank everyone involved. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We hear quite often that there are good experiences coming to our hospital, that we have a level of professionalism that is unrivaled. And thank you very much for putting your faith and belief in us too.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. And I just wanted to add to Councillor Greenfield's comments. I always think back, it's not that many years ago when we were threatened with losing our hospital, and to see such a long way that we have come, and to have the services now that are offered here in Meaford, and the hope that perhaps even more will be added as time goes by and growth is upon us. So my question is in relation to that growth. Is it a role of the foundation to advocate to open additional beds in our hospital, should we feel that will be required with the acuity of patients that we're seeing nowadays and with the length of stays that we're experiencing? I'm just wondering if there is a likelihood down the road of consideration being given to advocating for additional beds to be opened back up.
It's always a wonderful conversation to have with the foundation itself. We do not handle operationally the decisions that are made at the Meaford Hospital in terms of programming, in terms of how it's opening. But I know that as a corporation, in this moment, they are looking at a 5-year strategic plan about what different sites, because we have 6 sites under GBHS, what's going to happen within those 6 sites. So it's always great to be able to have those honest conversations for sure. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, well, look, thank you so much for coming to us today and for your presentation. And I have no doubt that we'll be having some conversations around the horseshoe about the future of the hospital and our role in it. So
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Your Worship.
the second presentation on the agenda actually has been withdrawn by the proponents. So and we have no deputations today. Any public questions? Anyone in the audience have a question of council at this point? Then it's on to council inquiries. This is council's opportunity to ask questions of staff. And it looks like everybody's, Tony, good. Now, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Jessica, this time of year, we've had a fairly late winter. And maybe just a quick comment from yourself on the status of how we're doing with our sand. If we've got lots of sand left and what that could mean for another year. Do we have any carryover, or if we do, that's what we would do, leave it in the dome, or are we in good shape with getting through the winter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the easy answer would be yes. We are in good shape and I haven't heard otherwise. Everything would stay and we'd be added to for next year. So same as usual.
Okay, thank you. That's good news. Deputy Mayor first.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just wanted to also ask of Jess, the graffiti on the Bake Shop Bridge that I noticed this weekend, and I know that's the second time in the last short while that we've seen some graffiti around our community. It's something that we don't wish to see happening, but I'm not too curious, first of all, how we might remove that, and if there's anything we can do to, I don't know how we do it, to promote that we are a community where we don't wish to see that happening. It's just a sad circumstance, but I'll just let you comment on the Big Shop Bridge.
Through you, yes, I did hear about that this morning as well and had a conversation about it. So generally with graffiti, we would try to remove it ourselves. We do have some capability of doing that, but unfortunately this is A, in a tough spot, and B, was not coming off as well as it would with the means that we had. So we have enlisted our contractor who does our bridge maintenance. He'll be coming out tomorrow to do, well, weather permitting, to do the removal of the graffiti. So it would hopefully be gone by the end of day tomorrow. In speaking to how to deter it is a great question that I don't know what I have an answer to, other than might lie in some communication, public communication, maybe down the road or in the future, just reminding people of how beautiful our town is without any additions.
Often people have found that they can engage the artistic, talents of some younger people in a space that can be their own, and maybe they would aspire to do something a little more artistic. I believe the Trowbridge Street Bridge also has its fair share of graffiti. It's on the, as far as I know, you can see it from the harbor, from Bayfield Street. It's on the eastern abutment. So maybe that could be tended to as well. Councillor Uri, would you echo that?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just gonna jump on the keep Jessica busy bus. We actually did discuss it previously, but I just wanted to make sure it was kind of brought up. The two at both ends of the town, we used to put up the big crossroad banners. And I know I talked to Jessica about this. Just want to make sure it's on the record that there are a lot of groups in town that utilize those, and we do want to get them back. And I know it's a safety issue with what exists. So I just want to make sure it's on kind of staff's mind that we're looking forward to getting those back functional so that we can be advertising all the great things that are happening in the community. So thank you.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. McCarl. Denise, last Monday's meeting concerning the eco retreat. At that time, the Gray Sauble comments were not available for us. Now they have come in. I just wondering, first of all, have you had a chance to look at them? And was there anything in there that caught your eye, and anything that needed to be the planning might be bringing back to council just for our information? I think there is concern. There's some hazard lands, some wetlands, and so on and so forth. Either you or Mr. Smith.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to jump in here and just comment that I don't believe it's appropriate or fair to ask Ms. McCarl that. She will, as always, be bringing back a planning report with a full consideration of all of the comments that were received at the public meeting and elsewhere. And council will have the opportunity to debate the zoning amendment at that stage rather than doing it on off the cuff in a meeting where this isn't on the agenda.
Any other questions at this point? Okay, moving on to motions and bylaws. We don't have anything on our consent agenda today, so moving into items for consideration. Item A is a recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 2023-18, being a bylaw to authorize and amend to authorize an amendment to an agreement pertaining to the upgrade of a portion of the 22nd Side Road in the geographic township of St. Vincent be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Did you wish to speak to that? Oh, yes, mover and seconder. Okay, it's moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Forder. All in favor?
No vote before we've discussed.
It's on the table. Okay. The politics, not the politics, the rules. Would you like to speak to this, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a couple of things that I'd like to deal with through the conversation, but I mean, I think we can get started with that first because I'm sure council have questions. I will say that if council wants to talk about any of the open enforcement matters that are existing related to this property at the minute, we will need to go into closed session, but we are able to do that if council wishes to.
So questions? Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I do have a question related to the second bullet point on page 2, which reads, the proponent agrees that they shall seek an occupancy permit from the building department from the municipality, nor shall they occupy any single detached dwelling until such time as the works are complete. So I just wanted to ask for some clarification on that. And does that mean that Ms. Devens and Mr. Diaz are still able to reside in the trailer or trailers that are currently on the site?
So thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think a key point here is that I believe that sentence is meant to read, the proponent agrees that they shall not seek an occupancy permit from the building department from the municipality, nor shall they occupy any single detached dwelling until such time as the work's complete, because that will be the intent of the agreement. So I think there's just a missing word in there. In terms of occupancy of the existing trailers, that will be one of those enforcement issues that's currently outstanding. And so to answer that, we'd have to be in closed session. And if that's what the Deputy Mayor would like to propose, I've got some words that we can use to go into closed in the meeting room next door if needs be.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Smith. And if I may, Your Worship, I would like us to go into that session to have an understanding of that situation. And I appreciate the clarity because that second bullet point wasn't making sense to me. So now I better understand it. Thank you.
So we need a motion, I guess, to go into a closed session. This would be pretty brief, I think.
So the motion would be that Council of the Municipality of Meaford does now go into closed session in the Chambers meeting room with the clerk, deputy clerk and chief building official in attendance to discuss litigation or potential litigation, specifically an enforcement issue on the 22nd Side Road. So we need a mover and a seconder for that and then a vote.
You're moving that Councillor Greenfield seconded. All in favor? Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we will return shortly, I'm sure. Thank you. So coming back into open council, I just report that council heard a staff report, an update on the open enforcement matters in this particular item. So Matt, next move. Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I'm happy to begin. I just want to say to Mr. Evans and Mr. Diaz, I know you've owned this property for a number of years and that you are anxious to go forward and get your home built. So my question for our Mr. Smith and our building inspector, Mr. Toby, is how can council best assist these folks in moving forward to acquire their building permit?
So the existing agreement from 2020 says that in order to get a building permit, the road outside the property has to be constructed. And the reason that that is there is because that matches up with section 4.8 of the zoning bylaw, which very specifically says no person shall erect any building or structure and no person shall use any building and structure, lot or parcel, unless the lot or parcel to be used abuts or fronts onto and obtains access from a street which is assumed by bylaw by a public authority for year-round maintenance process. So that what that basically means is you can't get a building permit until you front onto a municipal road, whether it be municipal or county or highway or so on. And that's what the 2020 agreement says. The agreement before you today changes that, and I would like to potentially suggest a couple of word changes to make this clearer, to say that you as council approve the issuing of a building permit even though the road has not been assumed, on the understanding that occupancy will not be granted until the road has been assumed. So if you pass this today, or a version of this today, then the applicants will be able to apply for a building permit based on this application, based on this agreement. And as long as they meet all of the other requirements for getting building permits, and that's, you know, the technical building code stuff, then we will be able to issue that and construction could start. So basically it would start the building process, but nobody would be allowed to move into that property and nobody would be allowed to apply for an occupancy permit until the road was acceptable to municipal standards and then by bylaw assumed into the municipal road system.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. So what you're saying, I'm reading the bylaw and basically it says we're authorizing amendment, but there's really no amendment on there. So we have to add something to this bylaw?
It would be my preference to do that, yes. And I do have some words to amend the bylaw to make that clearer. And so we would need a motion to that effect that I'm hoping a member of council or council will be willing to consider. And that will be to amend bylaw 2023-18 to do three things. Firstly, add an additional whereas clause. That's the top half of the bylaw to read, whereas council previously enacted bylaw 2020-38 to enter into an agreement for the extension of the 22nd side road to facilitate development on a lot that does not currently front an open road. And then to add an additional enacting clause, that's the chunk at the bottom, which is the actual bit that performs a legal function, to say that Schedule A of bylaw 2020-38 is hereby amended in accordance with the amending agreement attached hereto as Schedule A and forming part of this bylaw. And then we would have to just amend the existing clause 1 to say that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to execute said agreement. So basically that's a lot of words to add into the bylaw what it is that we're amending, because the bylaw as it stands doesn't say that.
Go ahead, Councillor Bartley.
So that would, if passed by council, would allow them to apply for a building permit and get a building permit if all the requirements were met. Without finishing the road right now.
Yes, because that's what the amending agreement talks about.
Does anyone wish to move that? Councillor Greenfield? You're moving it?
Yes, I would. I'm just wondering, I'm not trying to complicate things, should we include building permit and septic bid?
So no,
Okay.
you as council have no role in approving a building permit or a septic bed or anything else related to that. Purely today, you are looking at whether you want to pass a bylaw to allow for a building permit to be issued before the road is constructed.
Councillor Yerg,
Thank you, your worship.
we need a seconder, I think, before we can discuss it. Are you seconding it?
I'll do that as
Thank you.
well.
Okay.
Can you make that plural? Can we make it necessary building permits? Because if there is required to get a building permit for us or septic, whatever, so should that be plural?
No, in these sorts of terms, building permit is just an overarching phrase for all of the permits that are required in this sort of process. Yeah.
More discussion. Anyone have anything they want to add to this? Are you ready to vote on the motion?
So this would just be to amend the wording on the
Yes.
bylaw, not to approve the bylaw itself.
Right. So voting to approve the amendment, all in favor? That is carried. So now we need to vote on,
Yes, before we move any further forward, I would, if I could, like to suggest a small amendment to the actual agreement itself. And again, I'm looking here to clarify this so it's really clear what it is that we're doing. I read a moment ago the clause in the zoning bylaw that says you must have a road before you can have a building permit. Our zoning bylaw would have superiority over an agreement like this because it's a bylaw that's adopted that then gets approved by the county and the ministry and so on. So what I would like to suggest is that in clause 2.2 of the agreement, which right now starts, the owner provides an undertaking to the satisfaction of the municipality. I would like to propose, and hopefully council will move second and vote for this, that we replace the first sentence of that clause 2II with notwithstanding section 4.8A of the municipality zoning bylaw, the owner has provided an undertaking to the satisfaction of the municipality, confirming that an occupancy permit will not be requested, nor will the owner occupy the dwelling until the upgrade is completed. So the notwithstanding section 4.8A of that says, we know that the zoning bylaw exists, but we're making a conscious choice to set that aside and allow this in this circumstance. And then the other part that there is a significant addition there is in the existing draft that's in the council agenda. It says, nor will the owner the dwelling. And so I have added in then the word occupy, because I think that was what was probably intended. So it would now say, nor will the owner occupy the dwelling.
is there a mover for that? Deputy Mayor, the seconder, Councillor Forder. Any discussion? Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. One last question is, at what point would the deposit be returned? Like, and how soon after the completion of the road?
So the deposit would be returned after the road was complete, the municipality had done the necessary inspections and the road had been assumed. And then from that point, it should just be a sort of a normal check cycle of have the deposit requested and then a check produced and sent out. So, you know, within 30 days of the approval of the road, I would imagine.
Any further discussion? Are you ready to vote?
So we're now just voting on that amendment to the agreement first.
Does anybody need to hear that again, or you understand it? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried.
So then we would need a vote on the bylaw as amended, both with the changes to the bylaw and the agreement.
So I need
No, we already have a mover and a seconder for it.
okay, then call the vote. All in favor? That is final. Okay. Thank you. Item B is the recommendation that Council of the Municipality of Meaford support the minor revisions to Official Plan Amendment 34 as adopted by Bylaw 2022-70 recommended by the County of Grey. We need a mover and seconder to put that on the table. Moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Forder. Any discussion of this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could, at this point, I'd like to invite Liz Buckton, who's a familiar face to many of you, to come and give council an update. Liz has been the person working for the county on this particular project, and there's one or two updates that aren't in the documentation that you've been provided, and Liz will be able to explain.
Welcome back, Liz.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Happy to be here today. As you have before you, you have a table full of suggested modifications to the Meaford official plan update. And what I wanted to say is that I think staff and the consultant have done a fantastic job in pulling together all of the different types of input that you've received through that process. There's just a couple of things as we've been kind of going through at the county in discussion with Mr. Voigt here at Meaford that we felt could use some further tweaking or change. We've also had some change to our legislation that has happened kind of around us as we've been working through this process as well. So we've tried to incorporate some updates that respond to that legislation through the modifications. Not reflected in the table in front of you. There are two items that I would raise there. So the first is just that we had not received comments initially from Grace Sobel in response to circulation on the plan. And my understanding was the circulation happened at a time where they were incredibly busy late in August. And so they had not prioritized at that time provision of comments. We at the county had reached out to the Conservation Authority just to confirm as a matter of due diligence before we ultimately approved the plan that they didn't have any significant concerns or comments regarding the plan. And I've actually just received their comments back this morning. So they actually really have very, very minor suggestions for additional changes. There's just a couple of places in the environmental policies of the plan where they thought it was prudent to highlight that municipal staff or county staff may actually be the authority for waiving of an EIS on natural heritage matters on the go forward, as that doesn't fall under their mandate. And they've wanted also some clarification just to confirm in a couple of spaces around hazard matters, so karst being one example, and with respect to any alterations below a 100-year floodline, they just want to make sure that they're noted as the ongoing jurisdiction for consideration of studies in those cases. So I'll go back and I'll make some very minor tweaks to incorporate some wording around those items that they've raised. The additional item was just regarding item 2 of the modification table. And in that modification, we'd used some specific wording that we pulled from OPA 11 to the county's official plan. We did receive an appeal to OPA 11, and we won't have that finally resolved prior to the potential approval of this plan. So we've been advised by our legal reviewer to just tweak that to be more generic wording, to say that instead of including that specific policy excerpt from OPA 11, we would instead provide general wording that refers back to the county official plan so that you'll still be able to act under the provisions provided under that change, but it would be once those come into force and effect at the county level. And we are hopeful. We do have a case management conference now scheduled for that appeal process to the county's official plan update. And so we're hopeful that in April we'll have that scoped and everything will come into force and effect as it would pertain to the edits, allowing you to access those permissions through that particular modification. I just wanted to take the opportunity to be here today in case there were any specific questions around certain modifications that were made. I don't think there's anything that significantly changes the content or intention of the plan as was adopted by Meaford Council. We did get in, particularly in the agricultural designation section of that plan, and did some rearranging of sections just to make it really kind of flow well when compared to provincial guidelines for agricultural lands, which I guess are kind of a new framework since the Meaford official plan was initially created. So that was where we kind of mucked about the most. But again, it's not so much about the meaning or intention, but more so about the arrangement of sections there. So certainly would turn that back through you, Mr. Mayor. If there are questions, I can certainly try to address those. But otherwise, congratulations to council and to staff on a wonderful amendment. And it is our intention to take that forward to County Council on March 23rd. So we're just preparing, kind of wrapping up the final staff report the next couple of days, and that agenda will be published later this week. Thank you.
Any questions for Liz? Councillor Greenfield?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Liz. And I think we've got a good official plan going for us. On page 31, or at least on my computer, it's page 31. It has to do with ag tourism. And it names a lot of activities. Now, it doesn't say kite flying, but I'm sure that could be worked in. It says ag, special ag, and rural properties, and I'm just wondering if there was an initiative that was proposed. Could it happen on rural residential? Could it happen on future development lands? Or is it really restricted to those three zoning?
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Through you, Mr. Mayor, happy to address that. Just one clarifying question. Would you happen to be able to tell me the modification number, this number 24? Okay, perfect. Perfect. In the far left there. 24?
24.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So what we were just discussing there is that we think it might just actually be a section that we've reorganized as opposed to added in additional text. I'm just getting it in front of me here. Of course, it's taking its time. Oh, perfect. Well, there we go. I thought I'd be all efficient with my search function, but it's not working so well. Oh, yes. Okay. So I don't think we'd actually change the wording with that one. It was largely what it exists within the plan currently. But I think the intention here, so when we're talking about agricultural, rural, and special ag, we're talking about those overarching designations within the plan. And so that would apply broadly to those areas that fall outside of the urban areas and settlement areas. So I think, you know, within that broader area, so it might be designated rural, but you would have rural zones, you would have rural residential zones, you would have environmentally protected areas, all within kind of that broader designated area outside the settlement. And those policies would generally apply to those areas outside of the urban settlement area. So I think that probably gives it the permissions that you'd be looking for broadly within the rural areas of the municipality for those events to take place. Okay, yes, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's great to see you, Liz. You are missed here in Meaford, but congratulations on your new position with Grey County.
Thank you.
A couple of questions, if I may. Starting right at modification number 1, I'm pleased to see the deletion of that language. And would that then sort of protect Meaford? I just don't want to see us in a situation as West Grey and Hanover are in determining some settlement lands between the two of them. So does that provide us some protection deleting that language?
Right. I think so. There is within the Planning Act, there's 2 sections that speak to, sorry, not the Planning Act, provincial policy statement that speak to when we can deal with those settlement boundary area expansions. We just wanted to make sure that it was very clear, as is articulated within the county plan, that those happen at the time of a comprehensive review. So it would be done kind of as part of opening up the plan, as opposed to on a one-off kind of applicant-driven basis. And so we, you know, the provincial policy statement does provide for that flexibility to deal with it separate from a broad comprehensive review, provided it's not been identified as a provincially significant. Sorry, let me revise that. Areas Yes, sorry. So we can do some things, minor changes to the settlement area boundary. So for example, if we were going to, take one area out and add another area in where there was a no net change, the act does provide for that. But I think within the county official plan, what we've articulated there is that we really do want those to be at the time of that comprehensive review, even if we're just swapping, because we want to have consideration for all of the things that go with that boundary expansion. So from a servicing perspective, right, from a transportation connectivity perspective. So even though we might just be swapping lands with no net increase, the intention is that it would be through a more fulsome process as opposed to on a one-off basis with kind of lesser or ad hoc consideration of that issue.
Thank you. May I ask a second
Sure.
question, or do you wish to?
No, you go right ahead.
Modification number 6, Liz.
Okay.
And that does suggest in relation to bed and breakfast establishments that they be licensed annually in accordance with municipal licensing and other short-term vacation bylaw, which we don't have in place yet, but we're working towards that. And my last question, I just wondered if you can clarify for me, garden suites different from ADUs, or are they interchangeable, or is the garden suite something different?
Thank you very much, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So with respect to modification 6, bed and breakfast establishments, so we've carried forward some of that existing wording that I think had reference to that bed and breakfast lodging bylaw as may be amended, and so we haven't had that previously, but I understand that's perhaps something the council may wish to consider. So we've maintained that wording, and we tweaked this section a little bit to try and make sure that it was really consistent, I guess, in each reference throughout the plan. So you'll see also in subsequent modifications, we've changed the bed and breakfast policies in the rural designation and the shoreline designation and the settlement area designations so that they all have a consistent format, even though in some situations there's some additional requirements that may apply. For example, in a rural settlement area, there would be some servicing implications there that might not apply in a service settlement area. The intention there was to include wording that would dovetail with those new short-term vacation rental policies that have been included with the plan as well. And so you'd be looking at a bed and breakfast permitted up to 3 bedrooms as a bed and breakfast. And then if someone were to apply to go kind of above that 3-bedroom threshold for an accommodation use, your short-term vacation rental policies would then kick in, and that would be the basis you'd evaluate those against. So that's kind of how we've addressed those changes there, but it leaves that flexibility open to you to do licensing or other types of regulation around those types of uses. And then with respect to garden suites, so garden suites they're a defined use. It's a separate thing from ARUs under the Planning Act. And so garden suites are specifically meant to be a temporary or movable type of use. And we can allow them by temporary use bylaw as opposed to a permanent permission for them to be located on a property. So if you needed, maybe you had an ill family member who you were going to care for in convalescence after a surgery, that would be a short term, maybe it's a year, a couple of years, up to 20 years, that we could put permissions in place for those. And then beyond that point, there would be kind of a renewal process that would be required to maintain those uses. But I think in a lot of cases, folks consider the siting of a garden suite similar to as you would to an ARU, because it could perceivably be there for a decade or more. So you want to make sure that it's sited well and kind of meets all of those typical criteria for where you would want residential use to go. We just have a little more flexibility under the Planning Act to do that on a more ad hoc basis. Yeah.
Any more questions for Liz? Seeing none, are you ready to vote on this? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Item C is a recommendation that council provide pre-budget approval for the operating project TS 2023-13 granular resurfacing in the amount of $425,000. 2, approve the award of tender TS 2023-13 granular resurfacing to Walker Aggregates, Inc. for $1,341,196.80, including the municipality's non-refundable allocation of HST. And third, to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into the necessary agreement. I have a motion to put that on the floor. Councillor Bell, Councillor Yorick. Discussion or questions? No discussion of $1.5 million. Okay. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And now we could use a motion to move into committee of the whole. Moved by the deputy mayor and seconded by Councillor Forder. And the first item is the delegated authority annual report. Recommendation that committee of the whole receive report COM 2023-10 delegated authority annual report for 2022 for information purposes. I need a mover to put it on the floor. Sorry. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Greenfield. Discussion, questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a question in relation to section 41. I was just curious to know if the funds were not all dispersed, do they go back into a reserve then for the following year?
Section 41, is that the recreation subsidy? Yes, it is. So yes, basically what we do is we set aside the money. Sorry, let me restart that. Meaford Food Bank and Outreach keep the surplus funds that they haven't allocated in the year. At the start of the new year or when a budget is passed, we will cut them a check for the difference between 30,000 and whatever they still have from previous years, plus their, I think it's 22.50 for admin costs that we pay for them each year. And so anything remaining of 30,000 out of that, then we keep in a reserve until such time as the pot is used. We have accrued a fair bit over the last couple of years because of since we've been doing this. I think we've had 1 year of, I'm not sure we've had a full year of programs like I would expect to see this year. So the expectation is that if we get to the $30,000 threshold this year, we'll be then they're able to add more from the reserves and do that for a period of time until we need to think about whether the budget has to increase or not.
Questions? Seeing none, are you ready to vote? All in favor? And that is carried. Updates from members appointed to county council, committees and local boards. Maybe turn it over to Deputy Mayor Keaveney now for a report on county council.
Thank you, Your Worship. County Council did meet last Thursday, March the 9th, and began with a presentation from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, Joanne Hughes, Diane Booker, and our own Paul Vickers. We learned that Keith Curry from Collingwood has been recently elected president of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. So it's pretty great to have someone so close to home speaking federally for farmers. There are 2,178 farms in Grey County encompassing 448,197 acres of farmland, with 206 acres being the average size of a farm operation. 32% of farm operators are females, and that bears repeating. 32% of farm operators are women. 17.2% generate renewable energy. 20% sell directly to consumers, 46 at farm markets, and 259 farmers sell directly at stands or offer pick your own options. Mr. Vickers is particularly concerned with the 319 acres of farmland lost every day in Ontario to development. As Zone 2 Director, Paul advocates for growing up and in rather than encouraging more urban sprawl. We spent a considerable amount of time discussing a motion, so I will read it to you. AMO prepared a resolution to send to the province regarding homelessness. Whereas the homeless crisis is taking a devastating toll on families and communities, undermining a healthy and prosperous Ontario. Whereas the homelessness crisis is the result of underinvestment and poor policy choices of successive provincial governments. Whereas homelessness requires a range of housing, social services, and health solutions from government. Whereas homelessness is felt most at the level of local government and the residents they serve. Whereas municipalities and district social administration boards are doing their part, but do not have the resources, capacity, or tools to address this complex challenge. And whereas leadership and urgent action is needed from the provincial government on an emergency basis to develop, resource, and implement a comprehensive plan to prevent, reduce, and ultimately end homelessness in Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the County of Grey calls on the province to urgently acknowledge that homelessness in Ontario is a social, economic, and health crisis, commit to ending homelessness in Ontario, and to work with AMO and a broad range of community health, Indigenous, and economic partners to develop, resource, and implement an action plan to achieve this goal. And further, that the motion be sent to a number of ministers and so on. The discussion that council was engaged in resolved around this being a provincial motion, and it was felt strongly that the federal government should be included in this as well. And therefore, it was decided to add the provincial and federal governments as a call for urgency to address homelessness in Ontario. Council then discussed the matter of governance. This was requested last term before the election, and staff brought a report forward. So governance and how changes to the structure of council might be changed if that was the desire of the members of council. Currently, if a recorded vote is called, the vote is weighted, which means that the weight is based on the number of electors in each lower tiers. Council is currently, as we know, composed of 2 representatives from each lower tier. And we have an alternate, as we know. The warden is elected annually, and council's agenda is composed of council and committee of the whole, rather than standing committees, which was a prior way that county council was managed. If it was the desire of county council to change any of these circumstances, decisions would have to be made well before the 2026 election. A majority of all votes at the upper tier level, a majority of lower tier councils would need to pass resolutions supporting the change, and the total number of electors in the lower tier municipalities that have passed resolutions to the bylaw would have to form a majority of the electors of the upper tier municipality. A little bit complicated, but this is called a triple majority and would be necessary to move forward any structure changes at the county council level. And if anybody has any questions, or if the mayor wishes to add anything.
No, I certainly think there's a lot of food for thought in looking at the governance, the way county council operates. But I think it's hard to improve on it as it stands at this point in time. So other boards and committees, are there any reports today from any of our other committees? There are none. So we need a motion to move out of committee of the whole. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Bartley. Now Councillor motions. You want
Just need a vote, please.
You need a
to move out
vote.
of committee
Okay,
of the
all
whole,
right.
Yes.
And a time. It's 2:38. We moved out of committee of the whole. All in favor? Thank you. Is there any notice of motion today? Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a notice of motion that I will read. It's fairly lengthy, not quite as long as the county's one.
Speak right into the microphone there. Okay.
Whereas in 1840, David Miller constructed a cabin near the mouth of the Big Head River. Whereas over the next 34 years, the community, which became known as Peggy's Landing, grew in importance and populations, becoming the social and economic center of the area. Whereas in 1874, by a special act of the Ontario legislature, this urban area of now 1,700 persons was proclaimed to be known as the town of Meaford. Whereas the town area has grown in importance and population to include over 4,500 inhabitants, and was, as of January 1st, 2001, united with the townships of Sydenham and St. Vincent to become part of the town of Georgian Highlands, and shortly later, the municipality of Meaford. Whereas the year 2024 will mark the 150th anniversary of the urban area that is still commonly referred to as the town of Meaford. Therefore, be it resolved, the Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby recognize the sesquicentennial significance of the town. And furthermore, that requests be distributed to create a citizens task force and funding sources be investigated to commemorate the anniversary in 2024. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for this? Oh,
So,
no, that's
Mr.
right.
Mayor,
Sorry.
that's
That'll come
noticed,
back.
yeah.
That'll come back in 2 weeks. Sorry. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Greenfield. We've talked about the sesquicentennial in the Heritage Committee over the last several years, really. And so this is a first step in making sure that we do celebrate it. Are there any other motions or notices of motion, I mean to say? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'd just like to bring forward a notice of motion to request information from staff on next steps with bridges 21 and 22, now that we are aware of the county's position on these two structures.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. We have no motions for decision. Adoption of minutes. First, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby adopt the minutes of the council meetings held on February 24, February 27, and March 1st, 2023, and the closed meeting held on February 27th, 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Forder. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Item 12 is communications, and we had quite a lengthy correspondence list. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items to discuss? Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you again, Mayor Kentner. Yes, I'd like to withdraw number 25. That came from the town of Grimsby. And it is entitled Barriers for Women in Politics. And I'm wondering if our municipality, if our council would be interested in supporting that resolution and informing the town of Grimsby that we do support that. We here in our municipality do have one very fine lady on our council. In the past, we have usually had two. I know I think a few of us were quite surprised at the last election that as far as councillor candidates, there were no ladies came forward, and that's a little discouraging in today's world. So I wondered if I could move that we support that resolution.
By all means, is there a seconder for that Councillor Bartley? And I don't think we do we wish to discuss that, or we just simply vote? I think we're all in agreement. Do you need a vote for that to do that? Yes. Did anyone want to speak to the motion first? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
And Your Worship, thank you. And I just want to thank Councillor Greenfield for bringing this forward because, yeah, it is a bit of a curious situation to be the only woman, and very happy and proud and honored to be here. But to have not seen other women come forward, I think there are a lot of reasons for that. And I very much respect and appreciate Grimsby bringing forward this resolution. So yes, I happily support it. And thank you, Councillor Greenfield.
I just mentioned that my one lowly contribution to the observance of the special week last week, I did listen to a podcast from AMO with a lady councillor from Alberta who really challenged people to, get serious about getting women's voices heard through local politics. And anyway, I certainly, let's have a vote here and show our support and follow through with Grimsby. All in favor? Thank you. I think that is it. If there was nothing else on the correspondence list, I think next we have a short closed session to look at an update from legal counsel on a variety of issues. So I guess I move that we now go into a closed session.
So we'll need a move and a seconder and a vote.
Sorry.
Your worship, I just wanted to, or perhaps you'll want to move her first.
Yes, please.
Yes, move her first. I'll do that.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Bartley, all in favor?
And I just needed to mention, your worship, that I will need to declare conflict of interest on the discussion on one of the items to be included.
Okay. You can leave it when that comes up. Okay. And then we will come back after the closed meeting to properly adjourn.
I think on this occasion, as we're sort of to the end of the meeting, we'll remain in here for the closed session.
Okay. Just reporting out of a closed session here with the clerk and deputy clerk in attendance to discuss litigation or potential litigation and including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality, specifically the 2022 legal status update. And that concludes our meeting for today, and I declare us adjourned.